Hey guys, welcome back to the Psalms to God YouTube channel. I have another journal to show you guys. So lately I have been doing more topic-based journals instead of doing like a full-out war binder or faith journal like I did in previous years. So when 2024 came around, I didn't do like a I'm setting up my 2024 war binder video. But I have actually decided to do another iteration of I guess, I don't know if I want to call it a war binder or a faith journal or whatever you want to call it. But I did end up starting to create one and I wanted to share it with you guys. It is not like the ones that I've done before. It is based on a slightly different theme and a slightly different goal, but I do want to show it to you to give you ideas for things that you can add to your journals. I have a previous video where I talked about different pages that I like to add in my faith journals, and I think this is just kind of a continuation of that, showing different ways that you can track your faith or grow your faith through journaling. So I'm going to try to make this a quick video. I don't know how I define it quick, but I'm going to try to go through it fairly quickly. I'm not going to go through every single topic or every single thing that I put in here. So if you have questions about it, just leave me a message in the comments and I'll try to respond or to clarify. But I just want to give you an overview of what I've decided to do. So first things, I decided to try something different, and instead of using normal scrapbooking paper to create my journal, I used wrapping paper, like for gifts, and it actually worked out really well. So this is wrapping paper, gift wrap paper, and I kind of like how it turned out. So if you are a journal maker, that is something worth trying. So this is my growing with Yahweh or Growing with God journal. This is my cover page. This is Ohuhu alcohol ink markers and a white Sakura jelly roll pen to get the white around the script. If you use alcohol ink markers in your journal, make sure to use something in between. They will bleed. It does not matter how thick your paper is. I don't care if you get the thickest paper that money can buy. I have yet to find paper thick enough to withstand alcohol ink. It will bleed. And if you don't put anything between it, you will ruin the pages behind it. So just a pro tip. This year, I decided to dedicate my journal to growing, and I picked 7 different areas or pillars that I wanted to grow in, and I listed them all up front and then started making more concrete goals about how I wanted to grow in these areas. So in the beginning, I just put a verse related to each area that I thought connected it to the idea that I would want to grow in it and showed the significance of that particular area. And as I continued to try to create the journal, I realized that I should make more concrete goals. Went back to my college days and decided I should create SMART goals. SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. So I tried to go through and create a SMART goal for each area that I want to grow in. Wasn't the easiest thing. Some of these goals lend more to SMART goals than others. So not every single goal is actually technically a SMART goal, but I tried to use that as a parameter or a framework in setting my goals. And the first pages that I created in the journal, or the pages that I actually have to show you, are those pages where I started fleshing out the goals, where I wrote down, the major thing that I want to grow in. I created a SMART goal with different pillar or different, measurable and time-based, milestones that I wanted to hit. I wrote out things that I thought would help me to achieve these goals, things that will keep me in the mind state of achieving these goals, like Bible verses or songs that I could listen to that I think emulate the mood or the area that I'm trying to grow in. And I did this for each of those pillars. So I don't want to stop on each page because they're going to be fairly similar. Move, Allie. Sorry about that, guys. Allie is also growing in, I don't know, impatience. But each of these pages is kind of similar, so there's no need to really stop and talk about every single one. This is how I set up a gratitude page where I would write down gratitude for the morning, the afternoon, and the evening. I ended up actually getting sick right when I started making this. So like I thought I would be able to start doing my gratitude stuff in early March or mid-March, and I ended up not actually doing that. So this is more so a template that I'll probably use to set up for April. Most of the goals that I wrote out, I plan to start in April anyway. So no love lost, but a nice template. This is probably how I will do this for each month. But in general, I just wanted to flip through and show some of these and maybe talk a little bit about some of the, I guess, non-traditional areas that I said that I would want to grow in. I think it's self-explanatory that I would want to grow in things like giving and things like knowledge or faith. But you know, things like health and fitness, I don't think we often talk about this in the context of our spiritual walk, but all of these things are interconnected. Nothing is siloed, right? If you are in poor health physically, then you're probably going to start to be in poor health mentally, which is also going to lead to poor health spiritually because they all work together. You have one body, one mind, one soul, but they're all commingled into the same being. And so health and fitness has been on my radar as of lately. I think if you know me personally, or if you followed my channel or my podcast or my blog for any time, you know that I am a bit more of a health conscious person when it comes to food. I did grow up on a farm, so I'm used to eating pretty healthy. I've always been, I guess, a bit of a clean eater. I do have a track record with soda, but outside of soda, I typically have had a fairly health focused lifestyle in terms of food, but I wasn't always particularly concerned about the fitness aspect, about making sure that I'm being active and things like that. So when I was younger, I was just naturally active, and it was easy to get in, the 10,000 steps a day, or to be moving and to be active for 30 minutes a day and things like that. That's not true now that I am 30 plus years old. I have a desk job and I don't necessarily need to move around that much. Now that I live in a climate that gets cold in the winter, and has, colder mornings right now in the spring and things like that, it has been a little bit more difficult for me to get out and to walk as much as I used to walk. And I'm seeing it. And I'm feeling it. And I realized that I needed to be more proactive about staying fit, staying in shape. Exercising is good for you mentally. It's good for you physically. And so this year I have been trying to get into other ways of being active and incorporating fitness into my everyday lifestyle. So I added some goals here. I was actually shocked to see more verses than I expected in the Bible about fitness. I knew that there would be verses about health, and in particular about eating well, because I've seen those verses. I've talked about those verses before. But I found a couple verses that made me chuckle about health and fitness. I'm actually going to flip back for a second so that I can read the one I put on the first page. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 26 through 27, It says, "Therefore I run in such a way as not to run aimlessly. I box in such a way as to avoid hitting air, but I strictly discipline my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified." And this, as a whole, of course, has very much a spiritual application, but it is also talking about being in shape and not doing things needlessly, but training your body so that your body is a slave to your mind, and that is also a part of fitness in general. So I thought that was an interesting verse. And then on the actual growing with health and fitness page, I wrote down a verse from Proverbs 31, our famous Proverbs 31 woman that we're all supposed to be striving to be. It says that she surrounds her waist with strength and makes her arms strong. And I thought that was a very fitting verse and something of great courage and encouragement for those of us who may be afraid to try to get strong. T.D. Jakes said that women were too strong, but the Proverbs 31 woman is described as being strong 3 times in that passage. Just some food for thought. So, in each of these pages, I tried to get kind of into the nitty gritty. I left myself also some blank pages to list out things that I need for the other pages. So, if you're familiar, I like to make lists. So this will be a list of foods that are high in protein to help me with eating right as I exercise. Back here, I did one for places and service opportunities to help me with giving back to the community. I haven't written them out yet, as you can tell, but that will be part of the journaling experience. I have a page on growing in faith. This one is not really very much of a SMART goal because faith comes from the Holy Spirit. It's not like my arms where I can exercise and then my arms will be stronger. Growing in faith is something that comes from the Holy Spirit. So the goals I put here are more like prayer based, like praying more, submitting more, fasting, things like that, to more so to ask the Holy Spirit to give me faith, because faith is a fruit of the Spirit. So it's not something it's not of my own accord that I would get faith. And of course, I listed one of these pages for each pillar. So this is the one for knowledge, just more studying the word. If you've been around for a long time and you've been to my website, you know that I have a series on books of the Bible, where when I started rereading the Bible, I would go through each chapter and I would actually write out the things that I learned and the things that I had found, and like how different people may have interpreted things differently or interesting points that I found. And at some point, I stopped writing those things out. I didn't stop reading. I did finish reading the Bible, and I've actually gone back and read certain books and chapters multiple times since then. But I didn't finish writing the content for the blog. And I think that's a disservice to the people, but it's also a disservice to me. Like, I really liked that series. So part of this goal is to finish that series and to get back into the habit of writing those things on a consistent basis. So I plan to have pages in the journal for planning for that and for actually studying those chapters as I go. Growing my garden, I think that it's important, if you've never ever grown a garden, to try to grow at least one thing. You don't have to have a whole garden box. You don't have to have a whole garden bed. Just grow one thing. Just grow like an herb. Just grow some basil or something like that. To plant a seed and to see it grow, to water it, and to see it become something that you can harvest, that you can eat. I think that's what he created us for. I think that's part of the human experience. But also because so much of the New Testament, so much of the Bible in general has parables about agriculture. And I feel like people from our generation and from our time period don't understand the Bible because they don't understand that life. growing up as a farmer, a lot of it made more sense to me because I could actually see it. But also growing up, I've realized that people really are like plants. And I could probably write a book of parables about how people are like plants, and it would look very much like what the Messiah told us in the Bible. And as you grow plants, it clicks and it makes sense. And I think it helps you grow in your faith. It helps you grow in your spiritual knowledge. It helps you grow as a person. And then, of course, the food is probably going to be healthier for you because hopefully you won't spray chemicals and harmful pesticides on the food that you grow in your backyard. So it helps you to eat cleaner. It helps you to eat better, which goes back into the fitness and the health and all of these things. So I love gardening. This isn't necessarily something that I struggle with because I always garden and I enjoy gardening, but I did leave space for me to for me to plan what I'm going to plant, and also to try to tie it back into the other goals. So this is the second pillar that really doesn't have a SMART goal, but it is tying into some of the other goals. And I did leave space to journal about gardening and to show how it kind of parallels some of the ideas that the Messiah puts forth in the Bible. And this page again, it's just more of the planning. This is the shape of my actual garden bed, and I'll plan out where I'm going to put each crop and things like that as we get closer to planting season. And the final goal that I have is for, relationships. Within the body, it's important for us to fellowship, but it's also very easy for us to not do that. Church hurt is real. And I don't think I'm alone in feeling like church is just, I don't know. I don't want to say churches ain't it because that's not really what I mean, but it is how I feel sometimes is, going to church is not necessarily the easiest thing. The people are not the nicest people all the time. And so it's very easy, at least for me, to get in this kind of rut of like, you know what? I have friends who are believers. I talk to them on occasion and I study the word on my own and I'm good. But we are supposed to be fellowshipping with our fellow believers. We are supposed to have a local body that supports us. And I don't have that where I live right now. So I wrote some goals to motivate me and to help me try to go find a local church body and to find local friends who are believers. I also wrote in some goals here about just general relationships with friends, family, etc., because those are also very important in terms of the Great Commission, right? We're called to be the light of the world. We're called to go out and spread the gospel. And I can't really be spreading the gospel if I don't have genuine relationships with people. Sure, I may be listening to the word as I jog in the woods, or, I may be in the library reading whatever I'm reading. I may be out in public being polite to people, but that's not really the same as having an impact on people directly. It requires you to have actual relationships. And so that is the seventh pillar that I added. And my plan is to just keep adding pages in the notebook that relate to these seven pillars and help me track, or use the notebook to help me track how I'm growing in these different areas, as well as to journal about, how I feel about it, etc. So that is kind of the angle that I've taken this year for my war binder or for my faith journal, whichever term you prefer. And like I said, if you don't want a whole notebook dedicated to just growth and goals, these are pages that you can insert into a normal faith journal. You could also be adding in, your typical prayer pages, your sermon notes, your individual Bible study notes, etc. But I wanted to show you this notebook so that you could see some of the different things that I've been playing with and will be playing with this year. as I try to figure out another system that works for me until I get a more permanent local body that I hang out with and whatnot. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I know I kind of skimmed through that. But if you have questions about any particular topic or how the pages work or anything like that, as always, just leave me a message and I will try to get back to you. Have a good day, and I will see you guys soon.